If I read you the next description of our next speaker's mandate, you would think that there were 4 people doing the job. Linda Mantia is EVP for Digital Payments and Cards at RBC, and that means she's responsible for the strategic direction of their personal and business credit cards, rewards, and partnership programs, their merchant strategies, Moneris, online and mobile banking, enterprise retail payment strategy and innovation, and she has joint oversight of the RBC digital team. Right, like 4 or 5 people could be doing that job. She was previously, she's been named one of the most influential women in payments. She was previously at McKinsey, and before that, a lawyer at Davies Ward & Beck, so another kind of all-arounder here, like Javier this morning. I'm going to turn it over to her, and just a reminder that when she's finished, we're going to kind of hustle you out to your breakouts so that we stay on time. But please join me in welcoming Linda Mantia.
Hi, music. Good afternoon, everyone. A real honor to be here, and I just want to congratulate all the organizers on a fantastic conference. I've just heard everyone just saying how really terrific it's all been put together. It's funny, when I was listening to Mark and even Daryl talk about dinosaurs, I was at this conference, I don't know if anyone's ever gone, it's called Exponential Finance, and it's filled with everybody blockchain. Everybody's in AI, everyone's in the peer-to-peer business, everybody's doing all this new stuff. And right at the end with CNBC, they had myself and my counterpart from JP Chase. And the title of our segment was, "Will These Dinosaurs Survive?" And I'm like, not only is that really, really insulting, but you think I'm really dumb. Dinosaurs have not survived. So even the way you frame the question implies an answer. So it is funny, but I do think it keeps all of us on our toes. And I love this era for banking because I am a customer of financial services, and I do think everything that's kind of popping through is going to drive just an exponentially better experience for clients. We know finance is one of the biggest stresses that people have, and I actually think we could do a lot about that. So my topic is stretching the imagination in payments. And I think you've heard from all these speakers and others that one's imagination is stretched already. It is very, very stretched. And when we think about payments, it really was the first area in this new era of fintech that was hit. And all of us were on it super quick. We all know that banking, at the end of the day, it's 3 things. You store your money, you lend your money, and you move your money. And like a 3-legged stool, we knew you knock out one of those legs, and you're not sitting anymore. So we've been on it for quite a while, and we think it is just absolutely fundamental to everything that's going to happen next. So these disruptors, they are changing the landscape. And the question is why? I think we can pretty much break it down into 2 big reasons. One, it's moving at the speed of commerce. People want to sell more stuff, and as innovation comes along, people are going to reinvent the things that cause friction, another good word from today. So think about Uber. You know, if we were really on our game as banks, we would have sat there and looked at the taxi industry, and we as banks would have gone to those commercial clients of ours and said, you know, payments is kind of a mess when you're in the taxi. Your drivers are scared of cash. The credit card stuff, especially in the time, wasn't quite great. The drivers were worried, et cetera. But along came a company. They saw the problem. Like Daryl said, innovation doesn't happen for R&D's sake. It happens because you're solving a problem. They used their big, big brains, and they did behavioral economics. They did all sorts of statistical studies. They did all sorts of things to get that huge insight. People don't like running into the middle of traffic to stop a taxi. They discovered people don't want to worry about their money being stolen. Drivers didn't want to not get money from passengers, and passengers didn't like being yelled at because they didn't have the right change, or they used a credit card, which cost the drivers a lot at the time. So they used these insights, and through that, they created a great experience. And it makes people feel like they're super important because you have a driver. Hey, Joe, how you doing? Oh, Linda, come on in. You act like you know the driver. And they get paid. And we've taken something very unelegant and made it very elegant. But in that credit card is now sitting in-app. And the payment experience was reinvented for taxis. And that company figured that out. And that is how commerce is going to continue to reinvent payments. So that really is our first big era of change. And much like Daryl said earlier, commerce is also what would create a company like, what's it called now, Gold Money, from BitGold, because people have too much friction when they're trying to conduct global commerce. They don't have certainty of the size of payment, et cetera. So that's the first big reason that you see change. The second reason is the reasons we all know. Payments is engaging with clients. It gives a lot of data to all the parties involved, and that data allows you to do more things. It will allow a Google to move from being an advertising company to being paid for performance, as an example. So those are really the big reasons that we see the change. Now, we have seen disruption across many industries. We have seen media, transportation, entertainment. They've all changed. But at the end of the day, the client experience hasn't. What clients want has not changed. Who remembers when the VHS and beta thing first came along? I see some good hands. Good, good. Didn't we all think that was the end of movie theaters? And I remember it was the first time my dad was kind of technologically cool, and he came home with one, and we envisioned all the neighbors, how many chairs could we squish into the living room, because everyone's going to come to our house for movies. But what we discovered is that people just incorporated that into their lives, and that they did want to see the movies for entertainment, and they began to say, I'm going to go to the theater for this and stay home for this. And it created new business models. So we saw Blockbuster come along and said, hey, we can get movies and we rent them, very convenient. But then Netflix saw that there was a deeper need. Not everybody wants to drive to the video store. Not everybody can do that. There's not a Blockbuster everywhere, so they were smart. They said, come, we'll order them online, drop them in a mailbox, we'll take care of it. But what they did is they stayed close to the client irritants around that. And the minute it became digital, they cannibalized themselves. And they were able to very quickly take advantage of technology's evolution. And interestingly, Blockbuster was given the opportunity to purchase Netflix for $50 million back in the year 2000. What was it about the management team or the board that missed seeing where that world was going? It's an interesting question as we think about how we all adapt, how we work with third parties, what acquisitions we make. So I mentioned that commerce is reinventing payments. And I also said it's really very, very much about the data. But I also want to talk about what role that blockchain is coming along. It's the same thing. It's solving a problem. We do not have frictionless commerce on a global basis, though Daryl's company is moving really quick there. But when you look at blockchain, obviously I don't have time to go into it, and other sessions are on it. I worry that when we look at it for its near-term benefits. You can see how it can drive efficiency. We can see how it's going to streamline operations. We can see the elimination of reconciliations in the background, the end of some disputes as you begin to see the blockchain get deployed with smart contracts. But I think about analogies. So how many people remember having cameras that had film and you drove them over to the, hands? Yeah, I remember that too. And what a great day it was when you had digital cameras. And what did we all do? We got some Photoshop on our computers and we picked up a printer. And it was the same sort of thing that I'm seeing with blockchain, is that what we're imagining is that I'm going to print off my pictures at home and invite my friends over and they're going to go through the album. What quickly happened is people started saying, I'm not going to print anymore. I'm going to sit around and stare at it on a screen. But then Facebook came along and they saw just how massive an opportunity it was to completely change the customer experience, the way people were going to engage with one another when they couldn't be physically together. And now, I can see what my nieces eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because they're taking photos of everything all day long. But it really, really transformed. So I think consistent with some of the other speakers, we have to push ourselves and say, what does true digitization and payments mean? Because we're seeing the early era in some of the things that we've talked about, closer to automation, closer to leveraging technology, even artificial intelligence and bots to get at our data and to do things. But true digitization transforms. What happens when we don't need accounts receivable and accounts payable departments? We saw earlier, it was a very good discussion around how can we do bill pay differently. But do you really think people are going to save all the bills for the end of the month and then put them into a system and pay? Or if you could put smart contracts on top and truly digitize everything, Is there a complete match between the consumption of a product and a payment? So things that used to be large value payments versus low value payments are really one and the same. What jobs disappear? What new revenue streams come up? So things like Facebook can be created in this payments world. So I find it very interesting. None of this is going to happen overnight. We see lots of articles these days, is this a myth or a reality? And it's going to take a while. We need to get to standards. We need to get to a really good understanding in a bank around what the technology can do to change our risk management practices and our policies, because the technology can take a lot of risk out of the transactions. So early days. So how are we all going to win? I think we've heard great pieces around we have to work with the innovators. We're lucky at RBC, a lot of our businesses, our credit cards, our rewards business, we've worked with partners, and it is so important. It keeps you fresh, and it keeps you really understanding other people's business models. But as we look at it, there's really three things that you have to stay on top of. One is, how do you stay relevant to your client? Banks have always tried to deliver financial solutions most relevant to our clients. And we're able to use that data in payments to deliver those convenient solutions. But we really need to do some of the things that Daryl mentioned. We need better coordination across our business lines, across our incentives, across our systems. Convenience. I think banks get tons of points for how quick we've adopted new technology over time, whether it was from the branch to the extended hours to ATMs, taking on all our digital channels, et cetera. But I think we're coming into an era that's not linear like that anymore. As you begin to see what bots can do, has anyone used Alexa from Amazon? The linear belief that people have to be digital natives to be able to use technology, I think is going to change. And I think that will fundamentally change some of the behaviors as people engage with a bot. And you can wake up in the morning and say, hey, Alexa, what bills are due? You don't need to type. You don't need to set something up. Your phone, your watch, Mark, will tell you. So a very interesting time that we have to stay very, very diligent on. And one of the areas I'm actually most excited about, and it really does sound boring, is security. Most innovation, as we said, comes because we've left some client irritants back with our clients. And as we reflect and we think about security, did we all do enough to avoid customer irritants? We talk about our merchants. How much did they need to do to protect client information and PCI? Did we do enough? Why did PayPal come up with the wallet and not the banks? Why did Amazon come up with the shopping cart and not the banks? These things were for security to reduce the amount of leakage of clients. I think about consumers, and we tell them, memorize your number, memorize your code, don't write it down, memorize a PIN, and do all sorts of work. And we all know in this day and age, no client wants to do work. And yet all of us are still really concerned about identity takeover and other things related to security in the digital world. And I look at what's coming, and I think it's fantastic. RBC, I won't get into it, but we did secure cloud. We can digitize identity, and then we can ensure from the cloud experience having super secure payments. That is exciting. With biometrics, we can take all that work away from the people in the system and drive lower cost of transactions and better outcomes. So it's really a super time, and I think we have an excellent opportunity to continue to reimagine how to be relevant, convenient, and secure for our clients. So just as I close, many people kind of ask, and I'm at conferences where people say, what will banking look like in 2025? And I don't think any of us really have the answer. And I know that a lot of us are thinking about some big bets and big technology transformations that we need to do. And I know when we talk internally, we talk about what can we do to allow ourselves the right amount of flexibility to pivot really, really quickly as things become a little more known without sacrificing the clients and your ability to move and to move forward. Because none of these are fads. I mean, even if half of the things kind of come to fruition, it's a completely different place. And I agree with everyone. I think we're all working hard. The innovators will be there. It's going to be super bumpy, I think, for our clients. I think about the wallet world all the time. And you have to ask people, well, are you online? Yeah. Are you on a computer or on your mobile device? Oh, are you on an Android or an Apple? And then I can tell you what wallets we have available. That's not getting easier. That's getting wildly more complex. And I expect right through to 2025, it's going to be that complicated until a new normal comes. So I guess in closing, I would just I really like one of Bill Gates. I'm sure many of you have heard it before. His quote, and I think it's so powerful. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years and underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. Don't let yourselves be lulled into inaction. So that is by Bill Gates, and I'll use that as my concluding comments. I don't, from anything I'm hearing, believe any of us are doing that, but I think a good dose of healthy paranoia will ensure that we'll all do great. And I think as Canadians, we have a huge opportunity to innovate and begin to export some of the capabilities, because I don't see any other country in the world that knows how to innovate and collaborate as well as we do. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Linda. That was fantastic. Thanks to all of our speakers. That's a pretty fantastic note to send you off to your breakout sessions on, and by that I mean off you go. We're back here. 4:35 is the start of the session, so if you can try to be here a few minutes before that in your seats, that'd be great. Enjoy.